The fire had refined him. The oil had broken him. Now, God was about to stretch him. New Dawn Assembly was no longer a small, struggling fellowship. The church had moved into a larger hall on a busy road. Every week, new faces filled the seats. Testimonies flowed like water. Deliverance, restoration, healing, callings awakened. Other young ministers began to sit under Pastor David, just as he once sat under Pastor Elijah. Yet, strangely, David felt another stirring. Not excitement, not ambition, burden. During one extended fast, on the seventh night, David remained alone in the church after everyone had gone. The lights were dim. Worship music played softly. He lay before the altar, weak in body but alert in spirit. Then it came, not a vision of crowds, not a vision of buildings, a vision of a nation. He saw cities wrapped in darkness. He saw youths without direction. He saw churches full but hearts empty. He saw pulpits burning but altars cold. He saw pastors tired, some compromised, some wounded, some forgotten. And he heard a question, quiet but heavy. Who will go to them? David trembled. He wanted to speak, but fear closed his mouth. The work here was already heavy, the responsibility already great. And now, a nation? For weeks he said nothing, but the burden did not lift. Messages about repentance, revival, and consecration began to burn in him. He found himself preaching differently. Less entertainment, more eternity, less comfort, more surrender. Then the door opened. An invitation came from a small fellowship in another city, asking him to minister at a youth retreat. It seemed ordinary, but when David read the letter, his spirit shook. He told his leaders he would go. The retreat was held in an old school compound. The crowd was small, the sound system poor, the environment unimpressive. But that night, as David preached on return to the altar, something broke. Young people wept openly. Some lay on the ground crying out to God. Others confessed sins. Many surrendered their lives to Christ. Prayer continued until morning. By dawn, news had spread. Pastors from nearby towns came. They begged him to teach their leaders. Small meetings multiplied. Then invitations followed from other cities. What started as one trip became many. David now traveled often by buses, sometimes on bad roads, sometimes without honorariums, sometimes sleeping in strangers' homes. He preached in cathedrals and classrooms, under canopies and in open fields. But with the open doors came a painful demand. The home church began to feel his absence. Some members complained. Some leaders struggled. Offerings dropped. Fatigue increased. One evening, after returning from a long journey, David sat with his leadership team. Their faces were tired. Their words were careful. "Pastor," one of them said gently, "the church needs you. The nation may be calling, but your first responsibility is here." That night, David did not go home. He returned to the altar. He lay there until his voice was gone. "Lord," he cried, "did I misunderstand you? I only want your will. I cannot build my name. I only want to build what you are building." In the quietness of that night, clarity came. God was not calling him to abandon the church. God was calling him to raise a people who could carry it. David realized the next season was not about how much he could do, but about how many he could prepare. The following months were not glamorous. He canceled some invitations. He stayed back to teach. He poured into his leaders. He trained, corrected, released. He began a ministry school inside the church, not to make preachers, but to make servants. He taught prayer before preaching, character before gifting, brokenness before platforms. Slowly, strong men and women rose. When David traveled again, he did not leave a vacuum. He left an altar burning. Branches of New Dawn Assembly began to spring up, not built around David's presence, but around the culture of prayer and sound doctrine. Years later, when conferences gathered thousands, when his messages reached places he had never visited, when young pastors across the nation called him Father, David would often slip away from the crowd and find a quiet corner. There, he would kneel, and in tears, he would whisper the same prayer he prayed as a young assistant pastor. "Lord, keep the fire, protect the altar, and never let me outgrow your presence." Because David had learned the greatest truth of all: a man may build a church, but only God can build a generation.